We did everything right. We saved aggressively for 40 years. We maxed out retirement accounts. We avoided debt. By the time we retired at 65, we had over $1.5 million saved. By every measure, we were ahead of the game. So why, 3 years into retirement, did we feel broke? Why were we constantly anxious about money even though we had more than most people will ever see? It took us a while to figure it out. Here's what we learned the hard way. Let me start with some context. My wife and I are both in our late 60s now. I worked in corporate finance for 35 years. She was a teacher for 28 years, then ran her own consulting business for another 15. We were savers, both of us. We started putting money into retirement accounts in our late 20s and never stopped. We took advantage of every employer match we could get. We rolled over old 401k accounts into IRAs. We invested. We waited. By the time we retired at 65, we had about $1,600,000 across our various retirement accounts and brokerage accounts. We had a paid-off house. We had Social Security coming in. We were the picture of responsible retirement planning. And yet, by our second year of retirement, both of us were anxious, tight, stressed about money in a way we hadn't been when we were earning. It was confusing. We had more money than we'd ever had in our lives, so why did it feel like we were running out? The first realization: the math wasn't what we expected. When we did our retirement planning back in our 50s, we used some standard rules of thumb. Replace 70 or 80% of pre-retirement income. Use the 4% rule for withdrawals. Plan for inflation. We thought $1.5 million plus Social Security would replace our income comfortably. Here's what actually happened. Our pre-retirement income was around $170,000 a year combined. 80% of that would be $136,000. We figured if we could replicate that, we'd be fine. In retirement, our income came from 3 sources. Combined Social Security of about $4,500 a month, or $54,000 a year. Withdrawals from our $1.5 million at a 4% rate, or $60,000 a year. That gave us about $114,000 pre-tax. After taxes, that was somewhere around $95,000, much less than the $136,000 target we'd had in mind. We hadn't actually missed anything. We'd planned correctly. We just hadn't internalized what those numbers would mean when they were real dollars in our checking account. The second realization: our expenses were higher than we'd estimated. We'd run a budget exercise before retiring. We'd looked at our monthly expenses and figured we'd be spending around $80,000 a year in retirement. Reality was different. Healthcare came in much higher than we'd budgeted. Even with Medicare, our combined premiums, supplements, and out-of-pocket costs hit about $12,000 a year for the two of us. And that was a normal year with no major issues. Travel was much more expensive than we'd planned. We'd budgeted $10,000 a year for travel. In our first year of retirement, we did one big trip to Europe and several smaller ones, and we spent $23,000. We dreamed of traveling for years, and once we could, we went bigger than we'd planned. Helping our kids was something we hadn't budgeted at all. Our daughter went through a tough divorce. We helped with legal fees. Our son had unexpected medical costs not covered by his insurance. We helped him too. That was almost $15,000 we hadn't planned to spend. Home maintenance hit harder than expected. Our water heater died. Our furnace needed replacing. Our roof was approaching end of life. Just keeping up with the house was costing more than we'd budgeted. By the end of year 2, we were spending closer to $110,000 a year, not the $80,000 we'd planned for. The third realization: the market wasn't cooperating. We retired in a year when the markets were strong. We felt confident. In our second year, the markets had a rough stretch. Our portfolio dropped 15% from its peak. On paper, we lost over $200,000. That's normal market behavior. But when you're retired and watching your nest egg shrink while also drawing from it, the psychological effect is huge. Every withdrawal felt like it was making the problem worse. We knew intellectually that markets recover. We knew our long-term plans still worked. But emotionally, watching the balance go down was hard. It made us scared to spend. It made us second-guess every purchase. It made us feel poor even though we still had over $1.5 million in total assets. The fourth realization: we hadn't planned for the psychology. This is the one that surprised us the most. We'd spent decades being savers, and pulling money out of accounts went against every instinct we'd developed. We didn't have an automatic paycheck coming in anymore. Every dollar we spent was a dollar coming out of our nest egg. That felt different from spending money while you're earning. It felt like loss. Nobody had told us this would be hard. We just assumed we'd flip the switch from save to spend and feel fine about it. We didn't. The fifth realization: we were comparing wrong. Here's something subtle. As we got into retirement, we started comparing ourselves to other retirees. Some friends had pensions on top of their savings, guaranteed monthly income for life, no nest egg to draw down. Other friends had 3 or 5 million in savings, a different financial picture entirely. Still others had downsized, sold the big house, moved to a lower cost area, freed up hundreds of thousands in home equity. We hadn't done any of those things. We had a typical mid-career savings amount, no pension, and a paid-off but expensive home in a high-cost area. By comparison, we felt behind. The comparison was unfair, but it was real. It contributed to the anxiety. So here's what we changed. By the end of year 3, we made some changes. First, we got a financial advisor. We'd done our own planning for 30 years, but we needed someone to look at our actual situation and tell us if we were going to be okay. It turned out we were. The advisor showed us projections that gave us much more confidence that our money would last. Second, we rebuilt our budget honestly. We used real spending data from our first 2 years of retirement instead of pre-retirement estimates. Once we saw the truth of what we actually spent, we could make real choices about where to cut and where to keep spending. Third, we set up a separate spending account. We moved a year's worth of expenses into a high-yield savings account at the start of each year. That money was for spending. The rest stayed invested. This made our day-to-day spending feel less like draining the nest egg. Fourth, we made peace with spending. We had spent 40 years saving. Now we were going to spend at least some of it on the life we'd saved for. That meant doing the trips while we had energy. That meant helping our kids when they needed it. That meant not feeling guilty about a nice dinner out. Fifth, we stopped comparing. There will always be people with more. There will always be people who structured their retirement differently. Our situation was our situation. The question was whether we could live well on what we had, and the answer was yes. We're about 7 years into retirement now. Our portfolio is back above where it was when we retired. Our spending has settled into something more sustainable. The anxiety is gone, replaced with confidence that we built carefully over a few years. We're spending more than we did in year 2, and we feel less stressed about it. Counterintuitive, but true. The combination of better planning, more honest budgeting, and a real financial advisor gave us permission to enjoy what we'd saved. Here is what I wish I knew. Save more than you think you need. The 80% replacement rule is too low for most people. Plan for closer to 100% if you can. Run real numbers. Use your actual spending, not optimistic estimates. Add a real buffer for healthcare and home maintenance. Plan for the psychology. Spending down savings feels different from spending earned income. Set up systems that make it feel less scary. Get help. A good fee-only fiduciary financial advisor can be worth far more than they cost. And give yourself permission. You saved for a reason. Living well in retirement isn't reckless. It's what you earned. Here's what I wish someone had told us before we retired. The hardest part of retirement isn't the financial math. It's the psychological adjustment to spending instead of saving. Most people prepare for the math and miss the mindset. If you build the right mental approach alongside the financial plan, you can enjoy what you've earned. If you only build the financial plan, you might find yourself with plenty of money and no peace. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and drop a comment below. What surprised you most about retirement, or what worries you most about transitioning into it? I read every comment, and these conversations matter. And if you want more honest stories about what retirement is actually like, subscribe. I share exactly what I wish I knew so you can make smarter money moves.